Hi, welcome to the iOS Developer Nanodegree webcast. Today we're joined by myself, James Taylor, Fernando, Garrett, and Paul. And so really quick, to start off, we'll just introduce ourselves. Like I said, my name is James Taylor. I'm one of the iOS course managers for the iOS Developer Nanodegree. I'm currently located here in Phoenix, Arizona, and I've been a part of this Nanodegree program for the last year since it first launched back in March of 2015. Fernando.
Okay, so my turn. My name is Fernando Rodriguez. I'm one of the course developers at Udacity. I've been teaching iOS for maybe the last 4 years, approximately, in all around the world, in Europe, US, and Latin America. Right now I'm usually based in the Bay Area, but right now I'm in Madrid, Spain for this week. So by the way, right now it's 2 a.m. So I do hope you guys enjoy this webinar because there's a lot of effort into it.
Awesome. Okay, hi guys. My name is Paul. I'm also an iOS course manager at Udacity. I have also been involved with the iOS Nanodegree since March 5th of 2015 when it launched, but in the capacity of a student, because I'm a graduate of the course. And so yeah, I hope to speak a bit more about that later on, but now let's hear from Garrett.
Yeah, and I'm Garrett. I'm coming to you from the Mountain View office here, and I've been with Udacity ever since summer of last year, also an iOS course manager, and my background is in tech, electrical engineering, and teaching. So without further ado, I'll hand you over to James.
All right, so this webcast is specifically geared towards those who have just enrolled into the iOS Nanodegree program within the last month. So those who are getting their feet wet in the course content, and also those who are prospective students of the iOS Developer Nanodegree program. If you by chance have joined and you have a lot more experience, you've been in the Nanodegree program for a couple months now, you're definitely welcome to stay and ask any questions. What we're going to do is talk a little bit about where we're at right now with Swift, why Swift is such a great language to learn, why iOS development is the place to be right now, and I will go through and talk about the stuff that we cover in this course, or excuse me, the stuff that we cover in this Nanodegree program, including our courses, our projects, and all the other benefits that we give in this program. And then at the end, we'll open it up for questions and answers. So on the side of your screen, you should be able to see a question and answers section. If any of you have any questions, please type them up there, and you can upvote them if you really like them. And at the end, Garrett will moderate our question and answer session. So without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Fernando.
Okay, thank you. I'll go through some of the topics that you should absolutely know if you want to call yourself an iOS developer. What are the basic stuff that you must learn in order to start a new career as an iOS developer or start creating your own apps or whatever? First of all, well, there's the languages, and unfortunately, yes, I use plural languages. You need to know two of them. The most important right now is by far Swift. That's a new language that has been developed by Apple and recently released. And that's the main language for developing for Apple platforms. However, recently it was open source, and since then many new frameworks have been created for developing mostly web applications in Swift on Linux and probably in new environments pretty soon. Some of them, such as Kitura, are backed by companies such as IBM. Others, such as Zero, have been developed by other teams around the world. But basically, what seems to be happening is that Swift looks like a great candidate to become the Java of the future, the mainstream language that will be used in the next 10, 15 years. So even if you're not specifically interested in iOS, Swift goes beyond that, and it's a great investment at this point to learn Swift. Not only it will allow you to develop mobile apps, but also the backend on the other side of this app. Think of any successful app such as WhatsApp, Evernote, whatever. They have mostly two components: the client, what you have on the phone, and the backend, which resides on a server. With Swift, you can create both of them using the same language and using the same tools. So it's a great language to learn at this point. There's also a series of patterns that you need to understand. Perhaps the most basic one is the MVC. That's if you already did programming on any other platform, you're probably already familiar with it. Otherwise, we teach it in the Nanodegree. That's kind of how you organize your code in 3 different teams. And then there are 3 other patterns that are very common in Swift development, which is the delegate, target action, and notifications. These are important because they're ways of sending information around your application from one object to the other. And that's where most newbies commit their most terrible mistakes. So that's something that you must understand very clearly. And we do cover this in the Nanodegree. I should have mentioned also another language, which is Objective-C, which is kind of the legacy language for development for Apple platforms. And although you shouldn't see a lot of new development in that language, there's a lot of existing code base sorry, that has been developed in Objective-C. So you should have at least some understanding of Objective-C. That's also covered in the Nanodegree. Then there are several frameworks, which are a series of tools that you will have to use, such as Foundation, UIKit, Core Data, GCD, which stands for Grand Central Dispatch. That's used for running code in different threads. Have your not just your phone, but also a server now with Kitora, running different parts of the code in different threads. That's also covered in the Nanodegree, and that's actually one of the courses that I developed. You also need to learn about auto layout. That's the way you make your views or the UI of your application react when the size of it changes, when it's being displayed on a 4S, on a 6S Plus, etc. But most important of all, it's practice, practice, practice. There's no such thing as teaching someone how to code. You have to learn it. And the only way to do this is writing code over and over and over. And that's provided to you through a series of projects of increasing difficulty that you have to go through along the Nanodegree. And you can get grade on those projects and get feedback. And especially when you're starting, that's absolutely invaluable. So if you are willing to go the extra mile, work hard toward your Nanodegree, do all the projects, then we'll be here to help you night and day. Actually, even at 2 a.m. we'll be here helping you out. So by all means, take a look at the Nanodegree, ask whatever questions you feel like, and we'll do as best as we can to answer them.
Yeah, I would say definitely practice it. Hold on, I feel a little bit of echo from Fernando. Could you go ahead and mute your audio for just a moment? Cool, thanks. I would definitely back up what Fernando said about practice being one of the most important tools to have in your tool belt. I remember when I was learning to code, one of the things I would do over and over and over again would be to go through the same project over and over and over again. Not only so I could get faster and faster at it, but so I could understand the principles and apply them in my own unique context each time. Now, what I would like to talk about is the courses that we have, and just go through them somewhat briefly. So in this Nanodegree program, we have the students do 5 projects, which are broken up like this. So the first project that we have students do is a project called Pitch Perfect. And to introduce this project, we have a course called Intro to iOS Development with Swift. And this course can be kind of looked at as the, how would I put it? I would say it's like the honeymoon with iOS development. So here we get familiar with Xcode, how it works. We get familiar with auto layout, making IB actions and outlets, and view controllers. And at the end, we will have an app that the users create all by themselves that allows us to modulate our voices. So record our voices onto a phone and play them back at a high pitch, low pitch, fast rate, and slow rate. The second course that we have is called UI Kit Fundamentals, and that teaches us a little bit more about IB outlets and IB actions. It teaches us a little bit more about layout, both how to do it programmatically and also how to use auto layout on the storyboard. We'll learn a little bit about how to do segues, what different type of segues are, how to do them once again programmatically, and how to do them through storyboard. We'll talk a little bit about the delegate pattern, how to make table views and collection views, and also how to understand the navigation controller and what the navigation stack is. At the end of that course, we'll make the project called Meme Me, which allows us to pick an image, display that image, and put text on top of it to recreate what looks like a meme and share it with other people and save it to our camera roll. The third course that we have is the networking course, and that will teach us a lot about how to connect our app to the internet. So we'll learn about making network requests using web APIs, authentication, authorization. We'll also teach about JSON parsing in Swift, and a little bit more about MVC as well. At the end of that course, we will make the On the Map project, which is one that allows students to authenticate against our servers and then drop a pin and show people where they're at and their website. The final course that we have is called Persistence. This is one that's being made by Fernando, and this one teaches a lot about how we as developers can persist data from one app launch to another one using things like NSUser defaults, NSKeyed archiver, core data. And at the end of it, we'll make a project called Virtual Tourist, which will allow people to virtually tour the world by dropping a pin on a map, loading some images, and persisting those images to the phone's hard drive or the iPad's hard drive. And then finally, at the end of this run of courses, there's a final project where the student can then incorporate all of the concepts that they've learned into their own app. And there are a couple of electives that we offer as well. The first one is a course on Git and GitHub. I would assume many of our students are coming from github.com right now. For those not familiar with Git and GitHub, that's a way of version control. It's a way to save states of your app as you make it and be able to revert back to previous builds whenever you would like to. The second one is Swift syntax. So if you have an object-oriented programming background, this course will get you up to speed on Swift, how we make classes, how we make structs, enumerations, etc. We have another course on iOS debugging, which talks about just how to debug using Xcode, using breakpoints, looking at the console, etc. And the last one is another course made by Fernando called Grand Central Dispatch, which talks about threading, so you learn about closures and queues. Next, we have a couple of career courses that we offer students, and the whole purpose of our Nanodegree is to help people be employable in the craft that they choose. For us, it's iOS development. And so for the career courses, these are also electives, but we definitely recommend you doing them if you think they would benefit you. So we will help you go through your GitHub profile, make sure it's up to spec. Also your LinkedIn profile, help make sure it's up to spec. Quick aside, I actually never applied for my job here at Udacity. I was found by a recruiter on LinkedIn from Udacity, and I can't speak highly enough of how important LinkedIn has been in my career search or my career path. And then finally, we do an iOS dry run with students, so we can give feedback on how an iOS interview might go with them. Garrett, would you like to add anything about careers before I go on?
I think you mentioned pretty much everything there, James. Like you said, we have the LinkedIn and GitHub projects, and the key thing there is that you'll have a reviewer who's oftentimes a very skilled career person who can advise you on how to make your resume and your LinkedIn profile as good as possible. So as James mentioned, we're not just about teaching you the material, we're also in it with you to try to find a job. So that's our main goal.
Cool, thanks, Garrett. And finally, one of the main benefits of working here with Udacity as a student is that we have plenty of venues for students to find help to programming questions that they have, or any other iOS development related questions. The first and probably most important one that we have would be the forum. So in the forums, we have hundreds of students who have asked questions about different things throughout the courses. We would probably use that as one of the first lines of defense for combating questions or obstacles or roadblocks that we might have as we go through the course material. I would also recommend Googling a lot. I don't think there is a successful developer alive on the planet right now who doesn't use Google probably every other hour. And the second thing that we offer is one-on-one, so video conferences where you can sit down and talk to an experienced developer who has gone through our course material before. So if you have a question about, hey, I have this bug, I can't figure out what to do, or I don't understand how to implement a certain feature into my app, we would highly recommend scheduling a one-on-one interview with a mentor, and you could go through your code together. And the third one is that we have just created a Slack channel for students. And in the Slack channel, you can get feedback immediately from other students, and we as Udacity staff will pop in there every once in a while. So I think that's everything that I would like to cover about what we offer, and also the progression of courses and material that we have here at Udacity. And it looks like we have time to open up for question and answers. Currently, it looks like we don't have any questions. So if you'd like to take a moment and type in a question, feel free to do that right now. And in the meantime, maybe, Paul, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit right here, but could you tell us a little bit about what you did as a student to have a successful experience?
Sure. Well, as I said, I joined the iOS Nanodegree on the day that it's opened, in fact. I'm in Perth in Australia, so of course the Nanodegree opened at 1 a.m. my time. So I stayed up till 1 a.m. to make sure that I got in the first cohort, because they still ran cohorts back then. And yeah, the reason I joined was because I felt that Udacity offered a very well-rounded course. It wasn't just about teaching you material, it was teaching you material that would directly lead to a job. It was not just about learning the topic, it was about building your profile so that you can be marketable to a job. So for me, that was a fantastic offering, and why I chose to sign up for it in the first place. So, I started the course with not a great deal of programming experience. I mean, I think as of today, I might have a grand total of maybe 2.5 years. So before that, I'd never programmed before. I'm not a CS grad. I don't have like decades of programming experience like a lot of people do. I was learning from scratch pretty much, and I expected there to be difficult parts, and there were. I'm not going to say that it was easy. There were parts that were damn hard. But what I would say is the main thing that you need to get through the course is, well, two things, in fact. You need to believe that you can do it, because you can. And you need to have the determination to get through the hard parts, because there will be hard parts. If you have those two things, it's just a matter of time before you finish the course. And at the end of it, what I would also encourage everyone to do is take advantage of everything that Udacity offer, because it really makes a difference to your marketability. You know, when you're looking for a job, if you've got your LinkedIn all looking beautiful, if you've got a wonderful resume, if you've got your GitHub looking nice, recruiters notice that. They really do notice that. And you will stand out. This is something that when I was a student, I didn't really understand, because I'd never got a job in tech before. I'm here learning iOS development. I don't know whether what I'm learning is enough to get me a job. I'm just going through the course like you guys. And now that I am working here, looking from the other side of the fence, as it were, it's true. What the course offers is really what most companies would expect a junior developer to know, and they're very happy to see that you do know that after you come out of the Nanodegree. I know several iOS developers here in Perth, and I've spoken to them about my experience at Udacity, and they're like, "Oh, so what did you learn?" And I told them, and they said, "Oh yeah, that's pretty much exactly what we would want a junior developer to know. If I was hiring one, I'd want them to know these things." So the course is really structured from the get-go to make you employable, and I think that's what sets Udacity apart from a lot of other courses out there. That's why I joined. I plugged away at the course, bashed my head against the wall several times, and eventually got to the end of it. And yeah, here I am. It's a great journey, and it's one I would highly recommend you to take, and to really take advantage of everything that Udacity offer. It's all got a lot of thought put into it to help you get a job and be employable at the end of the day.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, I think every one of us has sort of gone through our own material and had a similar experience. I remember when I started my first Udacity course, I was really impressed by the projects. Right away from the start, you're building something that you can, sort of see and play around with, and it's actually something pretty neat. Pitch Perfect is a really fun project that you start out with. Okay, so it looks like we have a question here, and the question is, how much does an iOS developer need to know about UI design and animation? And that sounds like it'd be a good question for Fernando to talk to. And Fernando, I think we're going to need you to unmute here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So those are actually two completely different topics. UI design, that's not really our job as developers to do it. When we do it, we usually perpetrate it and we commit abominations. So usually, unless you're working solo, and even in that case, I would strongly recommend you hire a graphic designer to help you out. I believe you should leave the graphic design to someone else. For graphic designer, they do other things. It's you need a completely different mindset. As for animations, yeah, absolutely, you need to know how to do animations. That's the bad news. The good news is that you only need to know, let's say, 2 methods of a class called UIView, and with that you do 99.9% of all the animations that you need. So it's just 2 lines of code, and that's it. So don't worry about graphic design. It's not your job. And don't worry about animations, because it's very easy. So that's actually one of the advantages that working with Apple tools or frameworks they usually have a philosophy embedded in it that goes a bit like this: make the common stuff ridiculously easy and the uncommon one at least feasible. So as soon as you learn a bit about how things work, you'll be astonished as how fast you can go.
All right, so it looks like we have a follow-up question here. The participant would like to know, what are those two methods for animation that you end up using 99% of the time? And Fernando, if I can get you to unmute again.
So both are class methods of the class called UIView. One is animate with delay, duration, animate with duration, delay, and blah, 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 a bunch of other parameters. And the other one, I don't remember the name right now. It's used when you want to have a movement that is kind of like a pendulum. The one, does anybody remember the name of these things? I use autocomplete, so I don't have to remember these things from the top of my head. But if you look at class methods for UIView, you'll see those two methods. There are more, but there are two basic ones.
Okay, thanks, Fernando. We have another question, which is, how much does the Nanodegree help someone outside the United States to get employed? And I can answer this one. We work with all of our students, regardless of where they're located, to help them find a position. Obviously, we can't give any sort of advice about coming to the United States if you're in a different place. But we will help you however we can, whether that's finding a job which is local to where you live, finding a job with an international corporation that has offices in different areas, or whatever your situation may be. But we work with many international students to help them find employment. Again, I can't stress enough how our program is not just about learning the skills, it's about helping you get a job, which is why we have these career projects. Like helping you polish your resume and helping you get your LinkedIn ready to go. Absolutely, Fernando would like to speak to that as well. So Fernando, I'm going to let you unmute and you can add to my comments.
Okay. When I started, I said that it was a great investment to learn Swift. So I'd like to give some numbers about that. I did a very short research on Indeed.com. And just in California, there were more than 25,000 iOS open positions, with a substantial amount of them with salaries with 6 figures. So that's just in California. If you look around the world, okay, California is probably a big percent of all development jobs in the world. But this is definitely something that is in demand in the entire world. I've been teaching iOS development in Europe and Latin America, in the US, and everywhere you find the same situation. There are not enough developers everywhere. And you're not only learning something that allows you to work locally, you can tap into a global market. And the proof is Paul. He lives in Australia, and he got a job in a US company, and he's still living in Australia. So
yeah, absolutely. I would say that in addition to what Fernando's just said, that for me, for example, I live in Perth. Perth has a very small developer community. It's not a tech hub at all. Yet, because of my LinkedIn profile, I regularly get approached for iOS developer jobs. It's really in demand, and it's not like I'm living somewhere which has, or has a lot of tech industry. It just doesn't. Perth is a small city, 2 million roughly, and most of the tech industry in Australia is on the other side of the country, which, if you don't know Australia, is a 5-hour flight, so far away. But yeah, knowing what you know when you come out of the Nanodegree, you are employable. Regardless of the certification. I admit Udacity's certification is not as well known as we would like it to be yet, but the fact that you have projects that prove that you can do it at the end of it, that's what makes a difference. Employers love that.
I'd like to add something. Also, I've been interviewing iOS developers here in Spain for a long time, and I noticed something that is of extreme importance that most people don't realize. When you go to an interview, it doesn't really matter. Actually, it doesn't matter at all how many apps you have in the App Store, because you can have a single kind of a fart app with 20 versions of it in the App Store. What really matters and what a potential employer is going to look for is your GitHub profile and your code. And that's something that you end up having when you finish the Nanodegree. You have a portfolio of apps with a source code that you can show. And that's something that employers really are looking for.
All right, so we're coming up on 30 minutes here, which is what we originally posted for this webcast. We have one last question. If you guys want to answer it, you want to give me a thumbs up? You got a couple more minutes? Sure, all right. So the final question we'll take is any advice on doing iOS freelance work?
Can I? Yeah, can I answer? I can hear you. Do you guys hear me? Yeah?
Yep, you're doing fine. You're on.
Okay, so doing iOS as a freelancer, I think it's a good idea to get started, mostly to create a portfolio. But if you're planning to create the app and make millions in the App Store, maybe you should think twice. It's an extremely competitive environment, and it requires skills that most developers don't have or don't have the time to devote to those, mostly marketing. So I think it's an extremely good idea to get a portfolio done. As a career, maybe. I would not rely exclusively on that path. I would also consider working for a company, and also consider that the options for the Swift developer are opening up enormously right now. When I mentioned those 25,000 positions, that's iOS only. There should start we should start seeing positions for back-end development with Swift, and I believe that that's going to grow pretty fast in the future.
All right, James, do you want to wrap us up here?
Yeah, I'd love to. I would like to thank everyone for coming and giving us a little bit of your time so we could talk about iOS development, specifically with Udacity. And we'd like to take this conversation further. If you have more questions you'd like to ask of us, feel free to drop a line for us in the forums. And also, if it's a more personal question about maybe like payments or anything else, please write to us at support@udacity.com. And we look forward to seeing the rest of you in the classroom. And wish you all a great day, afternoon, and evening. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.